Thursday Night Tailgate, where the spotlight is always on the positive. Tune in Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time to hear your favorite NFL legends, players, and coaches sharing their stories. Now back to Chris and Bob.
I wouldn't joke about anything else that happens here tonight.
And now back with us here on Thursday Night Tailgate is AT&T Sports Net host and TNT guest Hall of Famer, Paul Alexander. Pittsburgh sports fans can hear Paul doing the pre- and post-game shows for the Pirates and the Penguins, like I say, on AT&T Sports Net Pittsburgh. Covers the Steelers as well. You guys know that Paul is one of our all-time favorite guests. I think he's now surpassed, oh, by the way, Bob, Jim Everett for the most appearances ever on Thursday Night Tailgate. We ended last season with Paul. There's no better way to kick off a new season other than having him back with us, and we're excited he is here with us on Thursday Night Tailgate to help us kick off season number 8. How are you, Paul?
Hi, Paul. Gentlemen, I'm fantastic. How are you guys?
We're really good, thank you, sir. So, Paul, I don't know if you heard the ridiculousness a moment ago from Tony Collins, who thinks that the Patriots are going to beat the Steelers 42-10. Help explain why Tony's crazy.
Oh, I wish I could. I covered the first game at New Gillette Stadium, and a certain former Steelers safety had said that he guaranteed a win. And Bill Belichick, who normally takes shots at people individually, said, "We found their safety play rather inviting." And Tom Brady just lit up the Steelers in ridiculous fashion. And here's what's scary. The Belichick-Brady combination in Foxborough is 5-0, and Brady has thrown 18 touchdowns and not a single pick. Boy. So, there is that. However,
so there's that. But beyond that,
you were spot on with a lot of, the addition by subtraction. Thank goodness for the Steelers that AB is now the Raiders' biggest problem they've probably had in many, many years. He's no longer theirs. The speed on defense, Baron Nelson Bush, upgrade. Cam Kelly from the defunct. I don't even know what are what was that league that's no longer. I don't even know what it. I don't really honestly don't know what it's called. AFF,
the AAF, the Alliance of American Football.
Whatever it was is gone, but the Steelers' strong safety is going to be maybe pressed into service, and that'll be quite an adjustment, I would think, from the whatever you called it to Tom Brady at Gillette Stadium. But I am cautiously optimistic, and the beauty of it is for the Steelers, this isn't certainly the Super Bowl. Granted, if you're really setting your sights high, which I know they are. The Steelers thankfully start every season with hopes of a championship, and they're normally, somewhere in the same area code or the same general vicinity as an AFC title contender. They build themselves that way. This could have a big say.
So, Paul, before we start getting into detail, I got to get you what's happening with AB? What has gone wrong?
Well, I think Ryan Clark may have said it best, and I'm not sure exactly when he said it. 4 or 5 years ago, 3, 4 years ago, when he finally got a big contract, he said that's going to be a problem. And back in the day, I used to be the studio host for the Mike Tomlin press conference every Tuesday. And my in-studio guest, when he showed up, was none other than Antonio Brown. And I have never seen a human being with more of a deer in the headlights persona. The guy, when the eyes are open, the lights are on, nobody's home. If you've ever heard that expression. There's not a lot going on there. And this is going to, I don't really care how it sounds because it's the truth. He's not a bright guy. And when you have all that talent and then you get paid all that money, and this is where the Steelers and the Rooneys and Mike Tomlin and everyone else failed miserably, they changed the rules for him because of his ability. They didn't hold him accountable. He didn't have to stay, at the dorm at St. Vincent for training camp. He could stay in his own Airbnb. He would show up late for meetings. He would miss walkthroughs. They paid him for a game they suspended him to end the season last year. That was a huge mistake. So now Mike Mayock, God bless him, is trying to bring this maniac under control, and it's not going well. It's at this point maybe putting toothpaste back in the tube. I don't know if you guys have ever tried that. Not good, not easy. Because now he's gotten away with murder. He has not been accountable for any of his actions. And now it's just, I think it's way too late. I don't think he may not ever play another down of football in the NFL.
Yeah.
He's that I really think he's that far gone.
So, Paul, let me float something by you, because what you just brought up a moment ago, not a bright guy. And here's what this has started to feel like to me. Remember when Chad Ochocinco left the Bengals and, they divested themselves of him and he started bouncing around the league? What came out was he was illiterate and he couldn't learn the playbook anywhere else. And what Carson Palmer was doing with him was essentially backyard football. Hey, Chad, you run it down and out. Hey, Chad, you run a square in. Hey, Chad, you go long, right? Because he couldn't learn the playbook. I'm starting to wonder if what we're starting to see with AB is something similar.
I don't think maybe any more than 30 to 40% of the time did he run the correct route as a Steeler. Now, Ben's the best backyard quarterback in the history of the NFL. Notice his success 75% of the time is when the play breaks down and he improvises. He is not a quick thrower. He is not a great reader of defenses. He is a great improvisational quarterback. And he and AB they'd say all the time, we made eye contact at the line of scrimmage. And that meant he was just going to run a fly, or he was going to run a quick slant, or they did the same thing that you're talking about with Ojo Cinco, that Carson Palmer had developed with him. And the beauty of AB also for Ben was, while covered, throw him the ball, he will still go up and get it. Or it'll get picked off, which it happened, 16 times last year. 9 of those 16 picks were AB targets. So
so that's my concern.
Right on target with, I just really, he was a nice kid when he started getting better. And even while we did that Tomlin press conference, and some of his comments were as off the wall as you could imagine, but he had those old grip tighteners. Remember, you try to strengthen your hands. The whole time underneath the desk, he would just switch back and forth from hand to hand. He never stopped squeezing the grip tightener for the half an hour or 45 minutes that we did the show.
Wow.
That is when he showed up. And at camp, every day after practice, he would do 100 one-hand catches with the jugs gun with each hand. 200 catches per hand, or 100 each, 200 total, after practice, every day. So now you can start to understand why Tomlin, the Rooneys, the Steelers in general, made some exceptions. He did not, carouse. He did not get himself into trouble until he started throwing furniture off high-rise condos. That was frowned upon. But he really was not. He was really not trouble. But now, the first thing I think he really did that I thought was the red flag, when he did the Facebook Live in the back of the locker room after the Steelers won a playoff game. That's the inner sanctum of the NFL. You do not, as you know, that's their haven. That's their sanctuary. That's where you do not go. You do not expose that ever for anybody. And he did. Again, probably because he's just not that bright. I don't think he even
Bob, questions for Paul?
Any of the things what I just said meant.
And Paul, just about the absence of Brown now in Pittsburgh, you talked about how they made so many exceptions for the guy to try to make him fit, and now they don't have that problem to worry about. Are you a big believer that just the absence of him and Bell, in a way, that team is in a much better place mentally right now?
No question. I spent every day, every second with that, with the last two Steelers Super Bowl teams, 05 and 09. And winning, as they know in New England better than anywhere else, is a culture. Football is the ultimate team game. If you are not going in the same direction, if you are not pulling for one another, if you don't have a symbiotic relationship between, the offense and the defense and the entire, the entire group of personnel, winning a Super Bowl is probably not going to happen. Now, we've seen, I think, in baseball, there was a lot of teams that won World Series championships that maybe there were some fractions in that clubhouse. Maybe they didn't particularly get along. But if you think about baseball, it's an individual game played as a team sport. You have an individual batting average. You have an individual, won-loss record as a pitcher and a save. You have an ERA. It's such an individual game. There's nothing individual about the NFL. We try to make it that way with fantasy. We make it that way with defensive players and number of sacks. But those players will tell you, I'm not getting sacks if my defensive linemen aren't occupying blockers. I'm not getting rushing titles if my offensive line doesn't go to the second level and make additional blocks. Quarterbacks will tell you, if my guy's not getting off the line of scrimmage and my own line's not protecting me, I'm not going to throw 50 touchdowns and beat Patrick Mahomes. That's not going to happen. So, Bob, you're right on target with this is a much better culture immediately. It definitely is, but at the same time, any coach will tell you, it's not the X's and the O's, it's the Jimmies and the Joes. You still have to win individual matchups if you want to win games. You have to have some better talent at certain places, and your coaches have to take advantage of where you have that mismatch to win games. So the greatest, kumbaya and holding hands and doing all that, if you stink, you're not going to win games. But thankfully the Steelers, for their sake, they have a great deal of talent. But you're not going to be better on the field without, 15 touchdowns and 1,600 yards or whatever AB finished with last year. Those numbers are hard to replace.
And Paul, amidst all the craziness there last year, one of the great stories came up, and one of the guys I had the most respect for was James Conner, because number one, there had to be a lot of pressure. He's hearing Le'Veon Bell's name every day, and he's trying to become a regular player and getting better and everything. And what he did was go out there, rush for almost 1,000 yards. People forget that he caught like 55 passes. Just an amazing story, and I don't know how much more respect I can have for a guy because of the circumstances he was under, but do you think he can duplicate that kind of production? The guy's just turned 24 years old.
He's a young guy. He's had a little bit of history of injury, both at Pitt and now with the Steelers. Didn't finish healthy last year. But he's a great story. He's a cancer survivor, and the way he tried to motivate people with similar situations. He is a real easy guy to root for. I don't think he has the ability that Le'Veon Bell has. Boy, he certainly has a lot of it, though. I mean, he's a Pro Bowler. Yeah. So he is certainly, if Jalen Samuels comes through and probably becomes a bit of a third down back as a guy out of the backfield once he learns to pick up the blitz as a blocker, yeah, I think they can have a real nice combination at running back. Because you know why? They have a really talented offensive line.
So, Paul, sticking with the Steelers on offense, obviously, right? We've been talking all about AB and his numbers gone. Dante Moncrief looks like he might be the starter at the wide receiver too, but James Washington seems like he's raised his game, at least what I've seen through training camp and the exhibition season. Talk about those two guys. Do you feel like they can actually, help Ben out and be a force on the offense?
High on both of them. Moncrief is a guy that will be in the right place at the right time. will make adjustments on his routes. He's that veteran presence that you want. And I think Washington is ready to kind of have a breakout year. He's kind of been the darling of camp so far. I remember what he and the current backup quarterback did against Pitt not too many years ago. They were simply unstoppable. Ben called him out kind of middle of last year and said he had to step up and grow up a little bit. And the cool thing is he did. He didn't back down. He accepted that he wasn't doing what, he was brought in to do. I think he could really have, a breakout year. And again, you're the guy opposite the double team. JuJu's going to have a lot of trouble, I think, duplicating the numbers that AB put up last year because he's not AB. That's not a knock on JuJu, but AB for the last 5 years, arguably the best maybe since Jerry Rice, or maybe even the best, certainly the best over the last 5-year period that the NFL has seen in a very long time. As goofy and as nutty as he is, you cannot take away anything about his performance or his talent. I mean, they're unsurpassed. Last 5 years, he's easily been the best player. Now, JuJu has great talent. I think he's a little bit underrated in terms of his speed. I remember Chuck Knowles said about Lynn Swann, yeah, his 40 time may have not been that fast, but I've never seen anyone catch him from behind. JuJu had a couple 90-plus touchdowns last year, 90-yard plus. I mean, he can run, but I don't know if he has the shake. I don't know if he has that, as Tomlin calls that, combat catchability, where he's going to have to go up and get it. If Ben's going to trust him enough to throw to him while he's covered, that's going to be, I think, a big determining factor in how their season goes.
Let's flip it over and talk a little bit about the defense, because that's the side of the ball that really needs to take a step forward. We talked about it a few moments ago. I think they've got a lot more team speed, and I think they're going to be much improved. Talk about Mark Barron, and now he's ahead of Devon Bush on the depth chart. Do you think that that's going to stay all season, or do you think Bush at some point surpasses him and takes over the inside linebacker job?
Well, his first preseason game and a half, he had 10 tackles, 2 sacks, and almost had a pick. So I think, and as Mike Tomlin said, we didn't move up in the draft to have him watch. So he is definitely going to play. And the Steelers play their base defense 25% of the time. That's when Mark Barron's going to be in there, in their base defense. 25% of the time, 75% of the time, it's going to be Devon Bush. And once again, the Steelers have made me like people from Michigan, which is very difficult for a Penn State guy. I had to like Larry Foote. I've had to like a lot of these guys that I really, as they played their collegiate career, I wished a lot of horrible things for them to go through. But once again, they present me with a Michigan guy I think I'm going to have to like. But a good friend of mine, a former Penn Stater, you guys remember Mike Zordich, a great guy from Penn State, had a great NFL career. He's now, believe it or not, coaching in Michigan, and I ran into him and I said, all right, what did they get? He goes, not only did they get a great player, he's an even better human being, and the Steelers are going to love every second of the Devon Bush era as a Steeler. So I think he's going to be a huge difference maker. I think the Steelers are going to wisely ease him into the situation. But, yeah, he's going to be a difference maker. He's a playmaker. And the guy that really impressed me so far, a guy to keep an eye out on Sunday night and the rest of the season, Stephon Tuitt had a phenomenal preseason. And it looks like he's ready to really step out and really become, a tandem with Cameron Hayward and just really a difference maker. Bud Dupree's playing for a contract. He's going to have a monster year. He is not signed after this year. So it's amazing. My old buddy and Steeler GM, Craig Patrick, he would try to arrange his Penguin teams that won those cups in the early 90s. He wanted his core to all be in a contract year at the same time, because he felt that no one played harder than guys that are trying to get that next contract.
Right.
And it might even be subconscious, but when you're in the first year of a 5-year guaranteed contract, you can't help but relax a little bit. You just can't. But if you're in the final year and you don't have anything that is like after that year, I think you're going to be playing with a little more desperation than normal. So I think because Bud Dupree is in that situation, I think that could be a big difference as well.
Paul, two more quick ones before I let you go. And staying on that outside linebacker position, I'm a little intrigued by Tuzar Skipper. I like what I saw, and again, he wasn't matched up against the ones, but it seems like a guy, if he could get some reps, might actually push Bud Dupree. What are your thoughts on him?
Anytime you keep an undrafted free agent and you cut a draft pick, you like this guy a lot. So yeah, he opened eyes. And the thing that's kind of funny, and we've all seen these guys throughout the years of covering sports, he's not a great practice player. Butts, as they call him. Coach Butler, the defensive coordinator, says, I wish he'd show me some of that in practice. But man, when the lights come on and it's game time, he makes plays. And I think he's going to probably not get a hat on Sunday night. I don't think he's probably going to be, dressed for the game. But I think if he can make his way into the special team situation, like a lot of great Steelers, have done over the years, they made their mark. The Brett Kiesels, James Harrisons and those guys have done. Yeah, I'm intrigued by him because, he had 5 sacks in the preseason. And as you point out, not against the ones. But hey, sacks are sacks, right?
Yeah. So last one. How confident are you in Chris Boswell?
100%. All the kickers that I've known over the years, and they're a little bit, they're a little bit tough. It's a lot like golf. And Chris, I know you're a big golf guy. You know all these guys. And I absolutely love the game as well. Kicking a football is really not a whole lot different than hitting a golf ball. Once you go south, once it's not working, once your timing or your rhythm or whatever it is off, sometimes you can't find it. And we've had days out on the course where it's not working and you work as hard as you can to get it back and it doesn't come back. But then you get back to the range or you get to a coach or you get to a teacher and all of a sudden you get it back. The good news is for Boz, he got it back. And it doesn't go. I mean, we saw what he did 2 years ago. Their complete difference in record was Boswell. 2 years ago, he made kicks. Last year, he didn't. It really, the season, so many people wanted to break it down in so many different ways, bends, interceptions, this, that. If Boswell would have made the same number of kicks he made last year as he did 2 years ago, the Steelers are 12 or 13 wins and probably a second seed in the AFC.
Paul, before we let you go, remind our listeners how they can stay up to date with you and follow you on social media and all the great things you're doing.
P. Alexander 44 on Twitter, and when I get the call, I'm anywhere in Pittsburgh that'll have me. I'm a utility guy. If needed, I'm there.
You're fantastic, my friend. Thank you so much for taking time out of your night to come back and be a part of the show.
Take it easy.
All right. Take care.
See you, Paul.
All right. See you guys. Bye-bye.
That's the great Paul Alexander. Bob, I just love the guy. He's you said it earlier, but there's just no one better at, Pittsburgh sports than Paul Alexander is.
And I don't think you'll get a better take on the whole, the whole thing with, Antonio Brown. Again, he'll come out and tell you exactly what he feels, and I think he got it right to a head, Chris. And that's Paul. He knows these guys, and he is amazingly intelligent enough to get it to the masses and effectively and exactly explain what's happening. And my goodness, we learn a lot when we talk to Paul.
Yes, we do. We've got our next guest, Randy McMichael, hanging on the line. We're going to get to Randy on the other side of this real quick station break.